From Canada, Citizens Forum, where we look at the important issues of the day through a lens of democracy and media and try to figure out, how do we build a better country for ourselves? From Canada, this is Citizens Forum. Citizens Forum, we talk about news, current affairs from a perspective of, do we have the democracy in Canada that we think we have? And do we have the free press in Canada that we need and think we have? But do we have it? I want to talk about measles. Measles has been big in the news for the last couple of weeks. A child died in Texas, and there are some outbreaks. There are outbreaks every year. So I don't think the media, which is making a big story out of the measles thing, I don't think they care about children's health or the life of one child. I think they care about corporate profits, and that's what this is about. Years ago, about 45 years ago, a friend showed me one of his medical school textbooks. We were just sitting there. He called me over. He said, have a look at this. And it was very surprising to me at the time, even though I wasn't into any of these issues. And what he showed me was basically a list of charts that showed the diseases that we vaccinate against. And it was something like this. I mean, this I got from it's called learntherisk.org. But what I saw in that medical school textbook 45 years ago was something very similar. So this shows, take a look at the top, whooping cough and pertussis. So this shows the number of deaths. This is supposedly, it says, the source is the Journal of American Academy of Pediatrics. So the Journal of the American Academy of Pediatrics. December, I can't read the date. It looks like 2020, but who knows? But this is similar to what I saw those years ago. And so it shows whooping cough. It runs from 1880 to 1970 on the chart. And its death rate, it doesn't say what the death rate is, but usually it's per 100,000. But I don't know if that's the case here. Who knows? But anyways, you can see that in 1880, the death rate for whooping cough pertussis was 900. And it went steadily downwards, as you can see, until the vaccines were introduced. There's 2 introductory dates. I'm assuming because there was a live vaccine and then a dead vaccine, or vice versa. But anyways, you can see when the vaccines were introduced, and you can see that they don't really make that much of a difference. The incline continues. And the thinking is that these diseases disappeared either because everybody had them after a certain period of time, or because of cleaner water, better sewage, public health things. But who knows? Under whooping cough, you can see measles. And again, measles goes from 1880 to 1970. You can see the death rate going downwards quite precipitately sometimes, and at a shallower rate at other times from 1880 to 1970. And you can then see where the vaccine was introduced, right? So the scarlet fever is next. And for scarlet fever, there is no vaccine, but it was a disease, and you can see it also went down in a similar way. So these diseases were sort of disappearing. And I think you can make the case that, going to the effectiveness of the vaccines, why they're so important, you can make the case that the corporations who produce the vaccines just took credit for what had been happening. And the corporate sector is so powerful that both the media and the government uh, only allow this one version of the truth to be told. And that version is that we desperately need vaccines in order to, keep children healthy and alive. But you can see from these charts, and I can't guarantee that the charts are correct. Maybe they're not correct. Maybe this is completely wrong. I don't know. But what I do know is that this part of the story is not being told. So that, to me, is a problem. And I want to look at something else. This is, the government won't do these studies, right? The government will not do studies comparing vaccinated to unvaccinated children. So we don't know a lot of stuff. Now, I'm saying that not as an expert, but I've heard that story from many, many people. Or I shouldn't say people, but sources. You see it being talked about. If you're looking, you certainly don't see it being talked about in the corporate media or by our politicians. The question is, do vaccines harm children? And you can see this chart. This was done by Mawson et al. 2017. Who knows who they are? Who knows if this study is correct? But I've seen a few similar ones. So you can see that the red is vaccinated and the blue is unvaccinated for allergic rhinitis, which I didn't know what that meant. I looked it up. It's hay fever. You can see it's 30 times as many in the vaccinated children. Allergies, higher. ADHD, higher. Autism, higher. Eczema, higher. Learning disabilities, higher. And neurodevelopmental disorders, higher in the vaccinated children, according to this study. And who knows if the study is right. But we should be talking about it, and we're not. We're not allowed to hear this side of the story. Or so it seems. Again, maybe I'm wrong. And this chart is actually, if a child had only one or two vaccines or shots, they were considered vaccinated for this study. They didn't have to have the full regimen, which is now many, many dozens of vaccinations, which, by the way, have in them maybe mercury, but certainly aluminum and many, many other things that you wouldn't necessarily want injected into your body. You just wouldn't want it if they told us what was in them. Okay, I'm looking for here. This was vaccinated and unvaccinated again, but here I think the child was only considered vaccinated if they had the full regimen of vaccines. And the unvaccinated had none, but the vaccinated children were getting the full regimen, not just one or two. So you can see severe allergies, gastrointestinal disorders, asthma. Asthma, it looks like 27.6 times. Autism, higher. ADHD, higher. Chronic ear infections, higher. So, I don't know why it says blue is 3x and red is, so that seems to be almost a flaw in the. But anyways, the question is, why is this point of view not allowed into the discussion? You're just not allowed to speak out against vaccines. If you do, and you're somebody at the top, for example, take a journalist, anybody working for CBC or CTV or any of the big newspapers or radio stations. I think if they said what I've just said anywhere in the corporate media or by any senior politician, that person's career would be over, right? It's just not allowed. And if we Canadians think that that's acceptable, and again, maybe I'm completely wrong here. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But is it acceptable that certain points of view are not allowed to be stated in Canada? Because that seems to be where we've gotten over the last 10 or 20 years. So that's my commentary on measles. There's a lot of questions about what's going on in Canada. Thank you very much for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.